And we should be live. Good evening. Welcome to the January 2021 membership meeting of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. I'm Craig Arnold, the president of the Guild. Hi, everyone. Like to welcome visitors. If you're the first time visitor with us, please stand up at home. Give yourself a round of applause. Also, if you're a brand new member, please stand up at home and give yourself a round of applause. We appreciate our new members. We got a bunch of them, about 20 of them, here in the last couple of weeks. So, going on to some of the reports, let's see, Tim Locke is our member at large, and he is the one who kind of oversees the elections for all the board officers and leadership committee. If you have an interest in becoming a part of the team that helps run this guild, please, we would love to hear from you. Some of us are getting a little tired, but it does take a dedicated group of people to make the guild run, and we are always looking for new volunteers to help us out. So this time of year is this first meeting is also when our treasurer gets to give a financial update on how the guild is doing. So we welcome Gary Melke up to the front of the. Yes, you have to come up here. And Gary will give us a financial update for the Guild.
Now, this is my big moment to shine every year, so hopefully you'll get something out of this presentation. This is the annual financial report to the Guild. It's an overview. We have much more detail on the website in the members-only area underneath the financial section. So there we have monthly operating statements and also a yearly recap. Please take a look at that. I hate to put this stuff out there and think that nobody else is looking at it. The first slide that you see up there, that is at the end of the year. You can see that we had $3,300 in the checking account, about $25 in the savings account, and 178 in 6 CDs that vary in maturity and also in an amount. So our total reserve at the end of the year was $207,000, and that is the first time that we have had a over 200,000 reserve at the end of the year. So it goes to show you that even with a difficult year, we still made good progress. The next slide just kind of goes into, this is what the difference is between the beginning of the year, we had 164,000. At the end of the year, we had 207. So our reserve increased by 42,000, almost $43,000. So everyone that helped out did a great job. The next slide kind of goes into where does our revenue come from? And here you can see that certainly our membership now makes up the major portion of our revenue. We also have some fundraising projects. Now the fundraising project at almost $14,000 there is a net amount. We actually had about 22,000 in projects, and we had about 8,000 in expenses. So we netted that out just to make it a little easier. And that's how we came up with the 13. The same thing can be said for our training. The training, we had about $32,000 in training, and we had some expenses, and that's how we wound up with the 11,964. But those are the three major components that make up our revenue. I did put in our interest rate, which is a little over $2,000. And we were just getting to the point where our CDs were getting about 2% or a little bit better. And then, of course, we had the pandemic hit, and so now all our CDs are less than 1%, and so we're not going to see that $2,000 for a long time, I don't think. Now, on the expense side, you can kind of see, okay, we have rent, we have utilities, and we have shop expenses. And those are our big expenses. Our rent is really $37,000, but the Turners pay a portion of that. They sublease from us, and that's how we got to the $23,860. Also, since I'm the one that's in charge of the office and miscellaneous, I didn't want you to think I was spending $7,000 a year on office stuff. The majority of that is a little over $3,000 is for our insurance, which went up this year. Our old carrier dropped or no longer insures our kind of organizations, so we had to find a new one, and that cost us some money. And also our shop expenses was a little higher than normal because during our shutdown we spent a great deal of time kind of upgrading and improving our shop. And so here again we need to give Chuck credit. He did a lot of work, and I think for the first time in memory we'd actually had all the machines working properly when we started back up again.
For a whole week. Yeah, for a whole week.
Okay, so if you kind of compare the 2019 and 2020, you can kind of see there that's just the difference between the cash. Now, the Guild uses the cash methodology as far as its reporting procedures. So what that means is that we record our income when we deposit money into the bank, and we record our expense when we write a check. So sometimes you'll have like a class which maybe you'll collect the money in 1 month, and then 3 months later the expense shows up. So we don't get fancy enough to accrue that. We just it's basically like a checkbook. So we recognize cash when we deposit in the bank, and we expense it when we write a check. And we can do that because the IRS allows us to do that because of the size of our organization. And then the next couple of slides, this is just this is our statement of assets and liabilities, and you can see that we have $207,000 in assets, and we have no liabilities. The lease that we have is an operating lease, which is not considered a long-term liability. So it's a fairly straightforward two-line financial statement. The next slide is just a little more detail on where our cash comes from. So if you don't like some of the stuff I netted out, you can take a look at this. And again, some of these numbers are all on the website in the members only area. And if you have any questions about the next one is just the cash out. The cash out one. Okay, there it is, and then you can again see the kind of the breakdown. It gives you a little bit more of a breakdown of where our expenses were. Now, if any of you have any questions and would like more detail, would like to see something different, by all means send me an email. Come in and see me when I'm shop foreman. And we're trying to get the information out to you, and hopefully this was meaningful. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Gary. Gary does a great job of getting all the financials prepared for each one of our meetings. He presents that to the board and then also to the leadership committee every month. Copies of that are on the website under the members only section. So if you go to the website, put in your email address that you signed up with the Guild and your password. I'm sure we'll be getting emails about that. I can't get in, but anyway, the members only area is all the information that the board gets and the leadership committee gets on the minutes of every meeting and the financials for the Guild each month. Those same documents are also in the library, and I think Gary has an addendum.
I have an addendum. I did want to give you an update on our lease negotiations, which I think several people have asked me about. And I was hoping that I would be able to do that today, but unfortunately, the lease hasn't made a whole lot of progress. It's taking longer because of everybody blames the pandemic on everything, so things just are not moving as quickly as it should. The only thing I can tell you is that the lease will probably be somewhere around 3 years. We will be staying here, and the rent will go up. How much is going up is one of the things that's holding up the process and trying to negotiate what that should be. So as soon as we get some information on the lease and finalize it, we'll get that out to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, the lease, our dues have not gone up this year, and we don't know for certain if our dues will go up next year. It just depends on how this works out. I do know that we got a new parking lot, and they're holding that, saying, look, you got a new parking lot. So we've asked for some other upgrades around here, maybe a couple of doors get replaced that have been problematic, like the overhead door, the man door back here by the dumpster. Those are things that, yeah, it's not necessary, but if they're going to raise the lease, we're going to ask you to do something for us. That's my opinion anyway. So, alrighty, let's see. Going through the rest of the agenda here, Chuck Saunders, our Director of Assets, he wrote a great article in the Woodworkers, which is the official newsletter of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. He wrote a great article, Hardwood versus Softwood. So read that. He pokes fun at a couple of our members, Matt, for one, being a retired forester. So I thought that was pretty funny. So read that article if you have it. And again, that's available on the website as well. Ron Hall, the Communications Committee, he asked us to remember that we have Facebook at KCWWG. We also have a Facebook group, Kansas City Woodworkers Guild group. You can see those on your screen now. We have an Instagram, which is Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. And you can see that. That's a pink one up on your screen. We have a Twitter account at KCW Guild. And also on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, and you'll get notices when we have other meetings and other special events. There's also a lot of videos on our website. There's more safety videos that have just been posted under the safety tab on our website. Some of those videos also may migrate over to YouTube as well. Ron is the newsletter guy. Ron wants to have articles. Some of us board members don't write articles in a timely fashion, and he might like, if you have something to say or are doing something interesting in your shop at home or have other woodworking experience that you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. So drop Ron a line, write a letter, send it to him, or write an article and send it to Ron, and he'll be able to publish it in the next edition of Woodwords. Let's see, the website does have a link right now so that you can upload your pictures and documentation on your show and tell items. So as long as we're doing this pandemic thing, we can take your show and tell items and put those on the screen here at the meeting. And tonight we have a good supply of them as well. Don Steele has a great article on using the website to look up books in the library. So if there's as a member, a lot of members don't even know we have a library yet. They see the library and think, oh my gosh, how do I use this? Well, you come in, you check out a book, you take it home and you read it, and then you bring it back. But you can search for books at home in the comfort of your own home to see if the Guild actually has one of these books you're interested in. So use that. Let's see, Chris is happy that we've got things working online. He's got new equipment back here. He's giving us a thumbs up. You got new equipment, so hopefully this is all coming through loud and clear. We estimate that there's about a minute to a minute and a half delay from what I say to what you see. So tonight during the presentation, do use the chat function in YouTube, and those questions will be read by Chris. Now, it will be about a minute and a half or so delay before he can ask that question, but he's going to try to get those questions asked pretty quickly. Let's see, membership. Jim's been working hard at membership. He sent an email today at 4:25. You can see the clock there. Renewals end for a discount on January 31st. So you save $5 by signing up by the end of January. Your renewal is due February 28th. That is the end of the renewal period. On March 1st, you start as a brand new member. So if you have shop privileges and you haven't paid by March 1st, you will be taking your safety test all over again. Who wants to do that? Get people raising their hands here. All righty. So Jim reminds us, get your dues paid. In fact, I've got my checkbook over here, write my check tonight to Gary. We do have right now 906 members. Renewals are at 62%, so that's 564 members. We've acquired a lot of new members over the last 2 or 3 months. They make excellent Christmas gifts too. Let's see, Matt Novak has for the program for next month maybe a timber framer. He's having a hard time getting a hold of the guy. But he's been assured that, yes, this guy will be here, but again, we can't promise anything when somebody doesn't return their phone calls. Did that come out loud? Okay. All right. Mike Jones in Safety has a great article on table saw blade height. The debate rages on how high your blade should be. Read Mike's article. It's a good article about that. Mike McCully, he does the Rough to Ready classes, oversees that and a few instructors. How many people have you done so far this year?
So far this year, we've only done 7.
So we've done 7 or 8 people this year.
We did 75 last year.
We did 75 people last year, and that was about how much revenue?
A little $3,500.
Yeah, about $3,500 worth of revenue. So thank you. Dwayne Miller in sponsorship. We got the Amazon Smile. If you're shopping on Amazon, be sure to search for the Smile. And so smile.amazon.com, you can search for the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild as your charity. A 0.5% of your purchase comes to the guild. It does not raise your price at all, but it's just a way for Jeff Bezos not to pay any taxes. Well, he doesn't anyway, does he? So, but anyway, it helps out the guild. I think last year, we had $300 and some dollars? Oh, $250. So I know I was a small portion of that. I think you say your wife is the majority in that. All righty. Let's see. Training. Norm Carpenter and his team set up some great classes. I'm going to be getting with Brett on my finishing class. I've got scheduling at work and scheduling here, because I can't miss my shop foreman duty. So, but we'll get a finishing class set up here in the next couple of months. Also, the beginning woodworking class is full. It's already started here at the sometime last week, I think is when it started. The intermediate class on April 8th may be full. Check the website. There's another basic class that starts on June 24th, and these are 10-week classes. Meets on Thursday night, and then finally wrapping up the year, the last quarter, with another intermediate class that starts on September 16th. So if you're interested in those classes, sign up early because they do fill up. Let's see, we normally have special interest groups now. A lot of them are not meeting because of COVID. It tends to bring a lot of people together in a not so socially distant environment. I know the wood carvers occasionally meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month from 6 to 9 over in the classroom number 2, and they carve, but there won't be a CNC SIG, which is special interest group. There won't be a CNC SIG for a while. Hand tool, a power tool, and scroll saw have all kind of been on hiatus for a while. But your newsletter or the website will certainly give you information when those restart. So we want to go in. Oh, I should tell you right now that the next meeting will be February 17th, and that's the 3rd Wednesday of the month. But we're going to go into show and tell. Okay, he's ready for show and tell. So I want to make sure I got this right. The first one should be Mike McCully has a triple doll bunk bed. You want to come up and talk about this since you're here? No? Okay. So this is made of cottonwood. How'd you like working with that? No, it stunk, right? Okay. The finish on it is gunstock stain and 4 coats of shellac. The points of interest are the balusters on each bed rail. And it took about 20 hours to complete this project. And it was, what will the project be used for, or the final destination? This was a granddaughter's Christmas present. Were you the beneficiary of it? Good. All right. So our guild sweetheart is here tonight. So Let's see, the favorite part of this project was the final look of the original design and the laser engraved dedication on there. The least favorite part of this project was gluing and attaching the balusters. So if you look at the detail on that, that almost looks like it could be life size. The way, but it's what? How long is it? About 20 inches long. Wow, that's pretty cool. Alrighty. Ready to go on? All right, so the next one's from Steve Erickson, and this is a drill press stand with storage underneath. So he made this out of out of plywood and 2x4s, and had some, am I reading the right one? Leftover walnut for the drawer fronts? That's not walnut. And Steve ought to know. He works for a tree service. Am I reading the right one?
That's the right one.
Okay.
It looks like this is the unfinished because
this is the unfinished one. He doesn't have the drawer fronts on.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has the drawer fronts on that one.
It's all sapwood. Okay, walnut sapwood. All righty. So, but after Christmas, he decided to make this portable stand for his drill press, and he had too much plywood work on the. There's too much work on the plywood base, just making the base. So he added the drawers, and so that way he didn't have to walk across the shop to get bits every time he needed one. And he says the mounting the drawer slides was a bit of a challenge. Yes, that can be an understatement. So, but from what we see there, that looks pretty good. And it looks like it's mobile too, so it just can move out of the way when you need to. So the next one is Kent Johnson. He actually sent in a video, and this is his edge sander that he made.
One of the things I enjoy most about working in my shop is coming up with tips and tricks that help me to accomplish my project more easily and quickly. Recently, I needed an edge sander, and while looking at commercially available ones, I realized that I couldn't justify the price of one, and I really did not have the square foot floor space to incorporate one in my small shop in any event. I'm a hobbyist, I'm not a commercial worker. So on looking at things, I decided to try to create a quick and easy belt sander, and I think I've come up with one. What I did was to cut out a profile of my Makita 9903 belt sander, portable belt sander, into a piece of 3/4 inch plywood. My belt sander sits square with the base or with the table. I assume that most of them do, although I don't know that, but this one is exactly square. And so it's just perfect to make a short edge sander. All I have to do is set my sander in the cutout and turn it on. And I can run my stock along the edge. Once the belt gets used up or worn down, the abrasive gets worn down, I can access new parts of the belt with a spacer and do the whole thing again. And the best part is the entire thing will knock down to a very easily storable piece of plywood, which can hang in the rafters or sit in the corner or whatever I need to do. Doesn't take any floor space at all. Thank you.
How cool is that? That's ingenuity there. So thanks, Kent. All righty, so going on to the next one, we have Alan Mcclure's river table. This is a sycamore slab with aluminum legs and epoxy fill. Got a river fill going on there. The finish on the wood portion was polyurethane. He says here, points of interest. Had to use a slab flattening mill and router to make the surface level. Keeping bubbles out of the drying epoxy was no fun. He did a translucent blue bottom pour and then a clear top layer to give a water see-through effect. Sanded the top and finished with sprayed polyurethane. The legs were custom made by a local welder and then powder coated. And you can see some of the legs there in that right image down at the bottom of that photo. The challenges encountered: many incremental epoxy pours and keeping bubbles heated while drying. So that's one of the things with epoxy, these big pours is, small pours and then come across it with a blowtorch and all those bubbles are supposed to rise to the top. A lot of this epoxy, when it starts to cure, gets very hot and it can want to trap those, so getting it even hotter will get those bubbles up to the top. They say. I've never done it. It took him about 4 weeks to complete this. I like this. What's the project will be used for, or its final destination? It's as a gift or for sale. But he did not give us a price. Oh, well, Gary will take it as a gift. So, the favorite part of this project was seeing the luster come back to the surface after sanding and then spraying on the poly to finish it. His least favorite part of this project were epoxy bubbles. So, moving on. Jim Martin has a nativity stable that he made out of cedar scrap. There it is. That's very nice looking. There's no finish on this, so it's just the raw wood put together. Oh, that is nice. I'm looking at the pictures here. Points of interest: use both a large tooth wide bandsaw blade to retain the rough hewn texture. The challenges it encountered was not injuring myself while listening to the Chiefs game on the radio. How long did it take the project? It took one Chiefs game to complete this project. What will the project be used for? A home display. His favorite part was using almost 100% of a small scrap and no design on paper. His least favorite were the complex angles on the glue up. But there's some pretty nice joints there, that bridle joint. There's a mortise and tenon in there. And that's all made out of cedar, kept it rough sawn. So that is really attractive. All right, so our next one is a cherry coffee table, and this is from Catherine Dingley. And she has materials used is cherry with hairpin legs. She has a low sheen polyurethane finish, 4 coats of polyurethane sanded with a 220 grit in between. The points of interest, she says, I love the grain on the board of cherry. Her challenges, we're learning to use the Festool domino machine to attach the breadboard ends. And she says in parentheses here, I love that machine. And thanks to Ed Stewart for his patient assistance. So thank you, Ed.
She also said in the email that the dog is there strictly for scale.
Oh, the dog is there for scale. Okay. What will this be used for? Well, it's in my son's it's my son's coffee table, and he's been instructed to always use a coaster. So the favorite part of this was putting it all together, and the least favorite part of this project was getting it finished by Christmas. So that's why I tell you people to start your Christmas gifts in April. All right, moving on. The next one is, let's see, I'm out of order here. There we go. Greg of Oakland has some chairs. He says in his remarks here, about a year ago I bought an oak counter height kitchen table I had designed and built using this style, and someone asked if I had a chair to go with it. This is the chair/stool. It is made from oak with general finishes nutmeg gel stain and several coats of Johnson paste wax. I have included some in-process photos as well. The back is glued up from 10 pieces with a 4.5 degree angle on each side. The footrest is dovetailed together and mortised and tenoned into the leg, as are the cross members at the bottom. This is the most difficult part of the chair for me to build. He's been a member of the guild for about 4 or 5 years, and he really misses the live meetings, and he hopes that we all could get back together soon. He's now in the process of making 3 more of these chairs to finish out the set. Well, so you make all 4 of them at once. And the first one you always keep back in the back so nobody sees it. So that's a nice looking chair. All right, so now we have, there's Susan Lawler. She has a magazine rack, and this is made of cherry and walnut. The finish on this is Danish oil and wax. They come apart and store flat for shipping. So this sounds like something you could sell online and ship them all over the country, Susan. Lost a lot of stock sanding the butt joints flat. That was one of her challenges, which made the slots bigger than necessary, and in turn the footprint is larger than expected. So still works, still looks good. How long did it take her to make this project? She says a few days. And this was the ultimate destination and use. This was Christmas gifts for the family. And her favorite part was really enjoyed how pretty the wood is. Her least favorite part is it's all good, made for though, ready to move on. I don't see any more of these magazine racks in Susan's future. What's that? Yeah, we'll go ahead and do the rest of them. So we got Steve Erickson. He has another project, 5 kitchen table stools. These are made of walnut. He used India ink to ebonize the legs, and shellac and armor seal for the top coats on those. His daughter wanted black legs, wrought iron. They're expensive when custom made for counter height. So he made them out of wood and just ebonized the wood on there. Yes. Have a
Craig,
question?
as our resident expert on the finishes, what does the armor seal do with the shellac?
Well, the armor seal is a top coat, and the shellac was put on. He probably used a wax-free shellac on top of the India ink so that the armor seal would not lift the ink up during the finishing, because the shellac's alcohol based and the armor seal's oil based, so it's not going to be able to penetrate through and damage and lift the black, damage the black India ink on there.
Thank you.
You're
Where
welcome.
did they get India ink?
From India.
Oh.
All righty, let's see. His challenges encountered was how to ebonize the legs. Designed the stools for counter height that I built 2 years ago. So I think he's saying that he forgot how high the counter was when he was building the stools. How long did it take to make this project? Unknown. So what will the project be used for? Will go to his daughter and her family. And the favorite part of this project was delivery. The least favorite part was sanding each of the coats of finish, because that would be a little tedious on all those legs up there. And our last entry is a 9-foot screen door, and this is for where is this?
This has already been hung out at the Camp Nash Boy Scouts.
Okay.
That goes to the kitchen entry. It was totally destroyed. There was no wood there, and they said, "Can you remake this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can remake a door." Well, discovered that making a door is a lot harder than what it sounds.
Yep. So used white, used white cedar on this. So that's a good choice for an outdoor door. There's 4 coats of spar urethane on here. The points of interest were the mortise and tenon construction and the double dominoes in the crossbars. I saw this when I was down here at the Guild, and those tenons were 4 inches long?
Yes.
On that? That was...
2 inches,
door,
2 inches deep.
yeah, 2 inches deep, and they're 4 inches tall. That door is not coming apart. And you use waterproof glue.
I
used
used the Tight Bond 3,
Yeah.
and I also used a product, but it's made for finishing or refinishing rotted wood. It stabilizes the wood, but when you put it on new wood, it basically petrifies the wood.
Oh, very
It
nice.
completely penetrates and crystallizes the wood fibers, so there shouldn't be any water getting the bottom of that door.
Well, very nice. It'll last longer than Mike, yeah.
Hopefully, it'll last longer than me because I don't want to have to remake one.
It took him about 45 hours to make this. Let's see, at Camp Nash in Bonner Springs. His favorite part of this project was the final look of the door. His least favorite part was applying the Abitron to the lower part of door and waiting between exterior coats of urethane to dry because it was chilly when you were top coating.
Yes,
this,
it
wasn't
was. Well, I did this out at our at the reservations shop, which was kept about 65 degrees, 65 to 70 degrees. But it was Mike, I believe it's Thompson, does refinishing of windows professionally, and he told me about this product, and he said you have to let it dry. Well, the first day I came back, apparently it was still wet, and I thought, oh my gosh, this thing's ruined. And I came back, I tried to mess with it a little bit, unsuccessfully. Came back 48 hours later, and it was all soaked in, every bit of it. It was amazing.
Oh, very nice. Might have to do that on my door. I'm doing so. All right. So if you've got any for next month, if you've got any show and tell items you've been making in your shop while you've been confined to your home, you can send pictures, and there's actually a form on the website. You can send those pictures in, and we'll read them just like this. I might be able to convince Jim Bainey to come down here and host this. So he's with his new microphone. Other than that, we just want to go to the program. All right. So we're going to go on to our program now. Matt sent in this great little bio about Larry and Cammie. They have a company, L&K Hardwoods, out in eastern Jackson County on the historic Blue Mills Grist Mill site. Their property also borders the Little Blue River, which gives them access to some wonderful timber. You're taking timber off of public lands, are you? So, but I'll let them explain more about their company and what they do. We talked earlier, and he did tell me that they have a sawmill that will cut a 60-inch diameter log. That's a big frickin' log.
Reminder, everyone watching on YouTube, if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and leave those over in the chats.
Come on it.
I'm coming.
All right. Now you're using. Let me get all.
I do want to say, we're not cutting timber off of public land. That was our land.
Okay. Let me get out of the way here. And are you using this, Cammie? This microphone?
I was told that she'll be correcting me from
Okay.
time to time, so that's
Okay.
why that's there.
All right.
Yeah, no day would be complete without her correcting me at least a time or two. Yeah, well, like I said, I moved 84 tons of gravel today, put in a new log road, and the first thing she said when she got home is, "Did you empty the dishwasher?" So, oh, excuse me, did I start the dishwasher? So it doesn't seem to matter what I get accomplished, it's never quite enough. But, I don't know, you want to talk about what we do, or you tell me?
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you guys and how you got started and
Well,
what do you guys do?
Kind of a long story, but I'll give you the abbreviated version. I got into the pallet business 10 years ago with my best friend. He got me an opportunity to go work for a company in Illinois that brokered pallets, and that's what I was doing. And my territory was pretty much most of Missouri, southern Iowa, northern Arkansas, and the entire state of Kansas. And there's not many trees in Kansas once you get past Topeka. And I traveled all around and found inline consumers for the pallets. But the biggest thing I took away from it was relationships with sawmills. So I would travel all around the states and find places we could buy cants and resawn lumber for pallet stock. And in doing so, firmed up some really cool relationships with a lot of Amish people around the state. And the opportunity came for Clemens and I, who was my former Amish business partner, to buy a new sawmill, and we bought a true cut bandsaw mill that would cut 72-inch diameter logs. And we started cutting that, and we built our own kiln up in Bethany, and we were kiln drying the lumber. But the problem we had is we were trying to dry 12,000 feet at a time in a big hand-built kiln, and without electricity, we really had no way to pull the moisture out of the lumber. Clemens and I parted ways about a year ago. My wife and I were blessed enough to buy the 40 acres that we're on now. Like you guys said in the intro, it's where the Blue Mills Grist Mill used to be, and the grist mill was built on our land in 1834. The grist mill and sawmills were the two very first sawmill structures or mill structures in Jackson County prior to the Civil War. They milled some of the finest flour west of the Mississippi. People would travel as far away as New Orleans to get flour from the Blue Mills Landing. The mill closed during the Civil War and was used for a battlefield hospital. And after the Civil War, the mill reopened and closed finally in 1878, sat there in ruins until 1923. And when the onlookers in the history books, they write about watching the destruction of the mill, and as they tore down the building, they rolled the millstones down into the river. So there's a lot of history there. The Battle of the Little Blue was fought there on those hillsides. And in 1910, the federal government exhumed the bodies of the soldiers that were buried on our property, and they moved them to Leavenworth National Cemetery for a proper burial. So my friend Keith got me into the pallet business, which got me into the lumber business, which in turn got me into the sawmill business. Keith had a stroke in March of 2016 and passed. So when we formed our company, we thought we wanted to honor his memory and name our company after Keith. So I am the L in L and K, and Keith is the K. A lot of people ask, your wife's name's Cammie and it's spelt with a C. They thought that either I didn't know how to spell or didn't know how to name my company. But no, the Keith is for Keith Reining, and Keith was my inspiration. And I'm a firm believer that God puts people in your lives for both good and bad. You need to have the wisdom to figure out which is which, and Keith was definitely a good one. But we built about an 8,000 square foot sawmill building on our property last summer with the helps of a few friends and neighbors. We cut all our own lumber there from logs that we harvested off our property selectively. All of our floor joists are made of hackberry, Kentucky coffee, ash, and red oak. I have 8x8s that hold up the main supports for the floor, and 12x12s that hold up the headers that we built. So the building is way overbuilt. I did all of the floor joists out of actual 2x10s, not nominal, and they're hardwood and they're 12-inch on center. And we decided that we would go ahead and build a second floor. So we have about 2,200 square foot of uninterrupted freestanding space upstairs that we're not sure what we're going to do with. So we have a Timber King 6000, which is a large bandsaw mill. If anybody's not familiar with Timber King, Cammie and I believe in supporting local. Timber King is a local company. It's also Woodmaster Tools. We had the very first 6,000 to roll off the line. That picture there is my father-in-law and I picking it up down in the caves where they're built. You know, and we put that thing, we actually built the mill, or built the building around the mill and around our iDry vacuum kiln. And that was another very nice piece of equipment that we were blessed enough to get. iDry is definitely on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to lumber drying. I could put 8-quarter walnut in that kiln with a moisture reading of about 30%, and between 14 and 16 days it comes out stable. So that is a lot better than air drying, which is an inch per year, good rule of thumb. So we crank out a lot of dry lumber. The only bad thing is I have not been able to keep up with dry lumber. So we have a little thing right now where people, you pick it and I dry it. I've had people come out and pick out a slab that speaks to them, and we can take that slab and mark a sold sign on it and hang a little tag from it and stick it in the kiln, and just a few weeks their lumber's ready for delivery. So we got our first electric bill, so not too happy with that. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that they would like they moved the stones from where they were into the river. Have any of them been found yet?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Some people tell us that there is a, Cammie, what's the name of that museum up on the square? The Three Trails Museum? Somebody said that the Three Trails Museum up on the Independence Square has the millstones. But it's been, ever since we moved there in June of last year, it's been closed due to COVID. So we have not been able to go in and investigate. Do you know what a millstone is? So the grain would come down and the stones have little grooves in them and they're powered by the river. So there was a paddle wheel that would go in the river, which would turn the stones. And as the grain would come down, it'd go in between the stones and it would grind it into like cornmeal and flour. And it's pretty cool. But yeah, we've been out there since June. We started on our building the 4th of August. We had to move about 500 tons of dirt to do the grade and about 300 tons of gravel, 110 3,000-pound retaining wall blocks. So like I talked about earlier, we put in a couple big log roads, and we buy logs from anybody that has them to sell. I try to stay away from any logs that are smaller than 24 inches in diameter. It's funny because people call all the time and they claim they have a huge walnut log they want to sell. And when I ask them for a description, they'll tell me it's about 10 feet long and 14 inches in diameter. And what can we do with it? And I said, well, typically that's firewood for us. And that upsets quite a few people. Kindling. Yeah, it really is kindling. We could cut it into stickers. But the slabs that we have at our place right now, some of the species that we cut a lot are going to be ash. We cut a lot of hackberry, black walnut. We have a lot of big mature sycamore trees on our land. Black oak, red oak, white oak, shagbark hickory, type bark hickory, some locusts, but it's really hard to manhandle. Locust is so heavy. If I found some hedge that was straight enough, I'd probably slab some of that out. Hedge is a great tone wood, makes really good turkey calls and duck calls. But that's most of the lumber that we cut. We are going to toy around with start getting into some exotics. We might be planning a trip to Costa Rica soon to start importing some species of lumber from Costa Rica, things like purple heart and monkey pod, which we have some monkey pod already, but that's some really pretty wood that we have messed around with in the past. We offer milling services for our customers. So if somebody had an heirloom log, something that was off a piece of property that was important to them, do a tree-to-table program where you can actually bring your log out, tell us how you want it cut, and we'll mill it for you. Depending on what you're going to use it for, we'll mill it to your spec. And then not only can we mill it, we can actually put it in the kiln and dry it for you. Give you some nice stable wood that you can build whatever you want to build with it. Some nice heirloom furniture.
Joe T just asked, do you guys only do slabs or do you do dimensional woods as well?
We can do dimensional. My mill wasn't really designed for dimensional lumber, and it's kind of hard to explain, but if you were to look at the mill, the log stops and the log dogs on our mill are designed to hold a pretty big log. The deck of the mill, obviously we cut 60-inch wide logs. The deck of the mill doesn't have log turners on it. So when we're rotating a log to do quarter sawn lumber or cutting dimensional lumber, we're rotating a log with can hooks and a skid loader. So we have cut dimensional lumber, obviously, because I cut all my framing lumber for my building on that mill. But we could gladly quarter saw or cut dimensional lumber. It's just a little bit more labor intense.
So we got some slides loaded. I'm going to go ahead and go through those, and if you can just comment on what we're looking at in some of these photos.
Gonna have any surprises for me in there? Well, what you're looking at is me and the warden. The tree back behind me in that picture is a big silver maple, and our friend Linda Betchel from Lease Summit had to take that tree down to build her new house. So we built her a live edge river table out of that tree, and then we also built her a really nice little sofa table. It was spalted maple, and I know everybody goes nuts over spalted maple, but the table turned out amazing. That's when that day my father-in-law Bob Beeman and I picked up the sawmill. down in the cave. And I would not recommend pulling a 48-foot gooseneck through the caves. That wasn't any fun at all. I don't know how the guys do it in the semis. So that's a picture of our mill. And if you look in through the garage door there, you can see the eye-dry kiln. In theory, the lumber will come off the mill. And we have some conveyors now where we can slide the lumber onto the conveyor. It's kind of hard to see in that picture, but there's a track system for the eye-dry kiln. The way it works is they got a buggy that rolls out of the kiln, and you put all the lumber on it, and then you forcibly put it in the kiln. You could only imagine that holds 2,000 board feet of lumber, so green walnut, 2,000 board feet, trying to push it in, it's not an easy task. The days that we unload and load the kiln are the days that we bribe people to come over with cocktails and help us load and unload the kiln.
So the kiln is that black box in the
Yeah,
background?
if you look, you can see like the vault wheels that you turn them, and that locks the door closed. And when that thing is under vacuum, you can't even open the door with the skid loader. It's pretty amazing. Atmospheric, and I don't know what vacuum is measured, I think inches of mercury. Atmospheric's around 29.4, 29.7. Inside the kiln, it normally operates around between 7.6 and 8. So it's the absence of air and the constant air movement. The fan in the kiln will run in forward for 120 minutes, then reverse for 120 minutes. And it's got a really cool touch screen on it. I was a little scared when I got it because I'm not a computer guy. I'm a nut and bolt guy. And when we got that thing and it's got a touch screen, I was like, I'm going to have to hire a 10 or 12-year-old to come show me how to use this thing. But on the graph, we could track the process of the lumber. So we can measure how much moisture comes out of the kiln on the drain cycle every 24 hours. And I could factor into how many board feet of lumber in the kiln, and that will give me an idea just how much moisture is left in the lumber. So,
Is that specific to species?
I try not to mix the species too awful much. Right now we've got right at 950 board feet of 8-quarter number 2 or rustic walnut that's been air drying for maybe a year. And I'm topping it off in the kiln for a buddy of mine. And then we've got some really nice 40-inch wide, 12-foot long live edge walnut slabs sitting on top of it, stickered up. And then I've got a few. I don't cut cookies very often because they're kind of hard to dry. They're heavy. They're a pain in the rear. But I've got a few cookies in there for a customer too. They're 16 inches thick. I think he's using them for legs for something. So they're going to stay in the kiln for probably quite some time. It'll take quite a while to dry those out.
Next question on YouTube. Jason asked, what's the longest length board you can get in your kiln?
12 foot 6 inches. Okay. I could do that and still get the door to close properly. So iDry has several different kilns. That is what they consider their entry-level kiln. We were limited. We live in a very rural area. We cannot get 3-phase power where we live, and that was the only kiln they make that is 220 single phase. So that's why we chose that kiln. And like I said earlier, we could dry 2,000 board feet at a time.
And Mike asked exactly where is your mill?
Our address is 3101 North Lentz Road. It's in Atherton, Missouri, but I think Google Maps pulls it up Independence, Missouri, which is Jackson County unincorporated. If somebody goes to our website, our address is on there. We're on Facebook. You could find us. We're not trying to hide. We want everybody to know where we're at. We do recommend appointment only right now because we want to keep the crowd to a minimum. Before we moved out there on a Saturday, which was like the biggest day that we would operate, it was not uncommon to have 20 or 30 customers there at a time. And I am very customer service oriented. I want to be able to give people my undivided attention. So now that we've gone to an appointment only, when somebody pulls up in the driveway, I already know who they are, what they're looking for, and their name. And that's kind of nice to already have that rapport with the customer or potential customer before they even arrive.
Have you ever had a log that's a little too big for your kiln?
We've got a log right now. We've got a white oak log that I bought from somebody. That's about 330 years old. So it was here before we were a country. So let that sink in for just a minute. And it is right at 60 inches in diameter, and it's 14 feet long. and it takes 2 skid loaders just to move it. So we're planning on cutting that in the next 2 weeks, but I'm going to have to ensure we have a lot of safety protocol, because if that thing were to get away from us when we're loading it on the kiln or loading it on the mill, somebody could get hurt pretty quick. It's pretty big. It was funny, the day I bought that log, I had a friend of mine text me a picture and said, look at the size of this log that somebody's driving down the road. And he texted me a picture, and I said, yeah, that's pretty sure that's headed to my house. I said, I told a guy that I would buy that white oak log from him if he could get it to me, because I wasn't even going to try and go fetch it. And that's another valid point. We do buy logs. If somebody has logs they want to sell, we do not get any of our lumber donated. We don't get any of the logs donated. We buy everything that we cut. That being said, the next question I usually get from people is, well, what do you give for them? Regular hardwood logs, saw logs are logs that are going to be pallet lumber logs. The going rate on them right now delivered to us is about 34 cents a board foot Doyle. Doyle is a scale for logging, if some people aren't familiar with Doyle scale. But 34 cents a board foot Doyle is what we're getting for regular mixed hardwood logs. If we've got a tie grade log, a log that's a little larger in diameter that we'll be able to get more than one railroad tie out of, those have to be 10 foot 6 inches in length. And tie logs will bring about 52 cents a board foot delivered to us. And keep in mind, none of this is black walnut. These are going to be things, like bur oak, post oak, pin oak, hackberry, not locust. The reason why they won't take locust pallet decking, and they will not take locust lumber for railroad tie logs. Why, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's twice as heavy as oak. Black walnut logs, if somebody was bringing them to us, the lowest grade saw log that is covered in knots and burls and just an ugly log, the lowest grade walnut log would bring about 80 cents a board foot right now. But when you start getting to more of the desirable logs, something that's clean 2 sides, logs that don't have any evidence of wind shake in them or bird peck marks in them, or they're not doty, they're not hollow, something that's going to make good dimensional lumber, or some live edge slabs. The average log's going to bring about 2 to 2.25 a board foot. If you think about that, the money adds up very, very quick on walnut. That's why walnut is so valuable, and that's why you hear things like walnut log theft. It's pretty common. We've talked to many people. We've actually been on the news a few times doing interviews, because a lot of people can't comprehend that someone would come onto their property in the middle of the night with a headlamp on and cut down large mature walnut trees. It happens. I would say that's probably not the smartest thing to do. It's tough enough cutting a big tree in the middle of the daylight with the right equipment, not caring who hears. But black walnut is a very valuable lumber. The biggest, baddest log I ever sold, I did sell a veneer log to an export company that went to Italy, and they gave me $12 a board foot for it, Doyle scale. So that one log brought over $5,000. So you could see where black walnut's very desirable. Everybody loves black walnut. Out of all the live edge slabs we sell, I would say 70% of them are black walnut. We do have some black walnut live edge slabs in stock that are over 66 inches wide that we cut on the old mill. That is a single piece dining room table or conference table. I do have a piece of monkey pod in stock right now that's 52 inches wide and 16 feet long. So, and when I cut that big white oak log, those are going to be slabs that somebody could easily make a dining room table out of one piece of wood. So that's a little bit about what we are and what we do, and we encourage people to come out and see us, even if you're not interested in buying lumber.
Got some more questions over here.
The stories are free, and the history lesson is always free.
Do you have the ability to finish plane or send a slab?
So yeah, I don't have any of that equipment anymore. When we moved, we decided we were just going to focus on rough sawing lumber. But that being said, I do have a friend who can, he's got a planer it's 25-inch wide capacity, and it'll run about 180 linear feet a minute. It's no joke. Yeah, my buddy Jeremiah,
skip plane or
Yeah, no, it does both. It does both sides. It's a beast of a machine. He also has a molder, so we are in the process of doing 7,000 board feet of rustic beech tongue and groove hardwood flooring. So Jeremiah will run that all through the molder. This guy he's doing a new construction home. He wanted a hardwood floor that nobody else had. Now he's got it. Rustic beech is beautiful lumber. It really is. It reminds me a lot of hickory and Kentucky coffee and maybe a little bit of spalted maple because it's got some of those characters in it. It's so pretty. And he also has a triple belt. It's a Viet belt sander. Probably cost more in our house. Yeah, pretty sure it did. It's a triple belt sander, so in one pass, he could hit a slab or a glue up like what you have over there. In one pass, he could hit it with 36 grit, 80 grit, and 120 grit all at once. Or he could change them and do 80, 120, 220, but he could do 42-inch wide. So to answer your question, no, we do not have it, but can we hook you up with somebody that does? Yeah, absolutely. He's also got a straight line saw, and he could gang rip lumber too.
Yep. So we talked a little bit about the kiln. Got some more slides of you guys installing the kiln.
Oh, that was a task. That's my dust collection system you see there. It's just a sweatshirt. Yeah, man glitter. That's right. That's my buddy Shane Harris. Him and his wife Amy own Impact Tow Company in Independence. That is his brand new big rig wrecker. That was the only thing that we could find that would. It's got an articulating boom on it. It's the only thing we could find that could lift the kiln and move it onto our freshly poured concrete slab. The kiln empty, just like you see there, it weighs almost 9,000 pounds. So, and that was, if you look behind him, you could see the construction going on. There was no building. We literally built the building around the kiln. So we put the kiln on the concrete about 10 days after we poured the concrete. I wanted to wait a full 2 weeks, but truckers wait for no one. The kiln arrived a little early, so we set it there on the concrete and we built the building around it. I kept it wrapped up in its protective Christmas gift wrap there until the days the electricians showed up. So I didn't want to scratch it or tear it up. There's a good picture of it sitting inside the building. We did have to move it a little bit. We took some 8-quarter walnut and bolted casters to it, and we lift the thing up and we put wheels underneath of it, and there was a dozen of us that rolled it into place. And we had a block and tackle on it, so we didn't want it to get away. When we built the building, originally, the back half of the building where the kiln is was all going to be open. It was going to be a lean-to. But I was designing as I went, and I decided I wanted more interior space. So where the kiln sit, the concrete kind of slopes down just a little, by design, not by error. It was by design. But we've got, right there at that part of the building, we've got 14-foot ceilings. So.
All right, that picture, what's on top of the kiln wrapped up?
Did she pay you to ask that? So I'm big into muscle cars, really big into muscle cars. And that just happens to be the interior out of a 69 427 4-speed Roadster, 3 deuces Corvette that I'm currently working on. It's a labor of love. And today I went and filled my truck and trailer with 55 Chevy parts, too.
You need a hobby, don't you?
I need another me is what I need. There's not enough hours in the day to apparently start the dishwasher.
You said you kept the kiln and wrapped up in its Christmas wrapping. Does that mean that's what Cammie got you for Christmas?
I usually get her a set of golf clubs with my initials on them. So I learned a long time
she's
ago
over
not,
here
to,
shaking her
not to
head.
buy a vacuum cleaner or any of that unless it's a dust collection system. Yeah, okay, so that picture right there, I just want to say for the record, that is not our kiln, because that looks all like pine, and I would never cut pine at my place. Somebody asked me what the racking or the track system looks like that you load your lumber on, and I found that on iDry's website and sent a picture of them so that's what that is. So that's what we do. So we come in from the side with the skid loader, we load all of the stickered lumber. I don't use a banding machine, and I don't band my lumber. I came up with a pretty cool way. Well, I didn't come up with it. I read about it somewhere. I take tension springs that used to hang like a porch swing, and I hook my ratchet straps to those on the buggy, and I crank them down super tight. So as the lumber dries, the tension springs keep the straps nice and tight, so I don't have to open the kiln halfway through the cycle and lose all of that heat to get in there and ratchet the lumber back down. And by keeping the tension on the lumber all the time like that, we really don't have much problem with the lumber twisting or deflecting much at all. The only problem I have with that is if I try to mix species and I try to put 4/4 lumber in with 8/4 lumber, because obviously the 8/4 lumber needs to stay in longer than the 4/4. So we don't do that anymore. I learned my lesson with that. So, but luckily it was my lumber. It didn't hurt anybody else's lumber.
What was the biggest thing that you stuck in that?
Well, we put a piece of walnut in there that was a little over 12 feet long and 42 inches wide.
How thick was that?
That was 12/4, but it had been air drying for a year and a half. So it was pretty. It was really pretty, and it had a very, very small sap ring. You know, I mean, it was old growth. And the really cool thing when you're out logging, and we've done a lot of our own logging over the years, the really cool thing when you're out logging is the uglier the bark on the walnut tree, the prettier the grain in the lumber. I mean, you get some of these walnut trees, we call alligator bark on them, almost looks like a persimmon, if you've seen what persimmon bark looks like. I mean, it's just really gnarly, ugly bark. And we already know when we cut that tree down that that's going to be the prettiest lumber we could get. And it really is. We've had a few trees that we cut had lightning strikes on them, but for whatever reason, the tree stayed together. And that, you see where a lot of these guys, they'll hook like a microwave transformer up, wood frack. We've cut a few logs that had some actually fracking in them from the lightning strike. And we had a chinkapin oak, which is whiskey barrel. And that's probably my favorite log to cut. I'm a whiskey guy. And when you're cutting it, I sit there and do that because, I mean, you can taste, it tastes like whiskey. When you're milling it, it'll draw a crowd. It really will. So my neighbors like to come help out. I got one neighbor that's great. He's there pretty much every day. He's retired. So, and then my father-in-law and my cousin help out a lot too.
So Kevin asked, do you offer green wood for chair making?
Well, I guess I could. If somebody wanted green lumber, they get. Is he wanting to bend it and form it? That's why he needs green.
And also, a lot of times, like, you'll have a dry structure and a green leg, and that leg. You'll have
He's trying to tell you use the microphone.
a dry stretcher and a green leg, and as that leg dries,
It
it will
tightens up.
it will squeeze on that tendon on that stretcher.
That makes pretty good sense. It's like you're using a torch on metal to heat up and set
Yeah.
bearing races on it. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. If somebody wanted green lumber, they could come buy green lumber from us. But we sell 8/4. We sell 8/4 walnut. We call it number 2 or rustic. So it's going to have figuring in it. The color is not going to be consistent of select and better. You know, rustic sells. People want rustic. I mean, that's what people want. But we sell kiln dried 8/4 rustic walnut for $3 a board foot. So, yeah,
And I need directions.
it's on our website.
It's on your website.
We go through it pretty quick. Right now we have, so if you look in that picture right there, top left corner, that is all 8/4 rustic or number 2 walnut. So it's going to have a little bit of wane on it in places. It's going to have some sapwood. It might have a knot. It's going to be inconsistent in coloring, so you're going to get some dark browns and some purples. And that is the mill run lumber. And I've got, each one of those bundles is 950 board feet. And I think there's 4 of them in that picture. And what you can't see is there's 2 other bundles behind me when I was taking that picture. But so like in that picture right there in the front and the bottom, that is beetle kill pine that I got out of Colorado. Behind it is spalted maple. Behind that is red oak, and those slabs are right at 40 inches wide, and they are 10/4 thick. And then behind that would be locust. We do have locust as beautiful wood. I don't know why people don't use it for things, but it's the heartwood and sapwood contrast is so pretty. Kind of reminds me of sherbet ice cream with butter on the side. That's what locust looks like, but it's crazy heavy. And then to the left, you'll see that is all black walnut. Some of those black walnut slabs on the bottom are just at 50 inches wide. Behind that is all black walnut, and then the very back, stacked up tall, is hackberry with honey locust underneath that there. And then just leaning up against the wall in the back, it's just, you got a little bit of everything. We've got some walnut slabs in there. We've got some white oak, some red oak, some hackberry, some hickory, some locust. And those are just standing up as samples, so when people walk in, they could kind of look at them and see the different colors. Our new building, we've got about 2,200 square feet upstairs. It's unfinished, but what I plan on doing when it's done is putting samples of all the wood up there. That way, people that are new, and we got a lot of honeydews that come out to our place. Honey, do you mind making me a table? Honey, do you mind making me a dresser? So we get a lot of guys that are brand new at woodworking. This is their very first experiment. They've watched a YouTube video, and now they can do epoxy because they saw a 4-minute video. Epoxy's very challenging. I've done some. But we get a lot of really, really nice people that have been out. They've never done any of this stuff before. And they come out and they start their journey with us.
What's your minimum order?
I don't have a minimum order.
One board.
Yeah.
'Cause you can't
I've had, all joking aside, I've had people show up in a Miata to pick up lumber. I thought it was a joke. I thought they were stopping to ask for directions or something. But they, charcuterie boards.
Yeah.
Everybody's making those now. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit a guy making those, but no two are alike. And their creativity and what they use, whether it's the combination of the lumber they use or the way that they've cut the lumber or the way that they've stacked the pattern. So I mean, a lot of people come out, they want to buy like 3 board feet of lumber just because they need something to finish off a charcuterie board or coasters or something. So yeah, we don't have a minimum. We don't have a maximum. It's all for sale. I'm not a collector. It's all for sale. But yeah, it's fun. You know, God has blessed us to be able to buy our dreamland and to do what we do for a living and make money at it. Oh, so that's cool right there. So if you look at top right picture, that's Carly Ritter from Fox 4 News. We built her dining room table. That is all rustic walnut. I picture framed the table. I used a domino cutter, a Festool domino cutter. When I made that, we put a walnut skirt all around it. And you can't really tell, but if the edge, the border on that, that's made out of a bandsaw blade. So I took the router and I cut a groove all the way around. I'm not skilled like you guys. I mean, but this was like the top of my skill level. But so there is a 1.5 inch tall or wide bandsaw blade, and the edge of that is recessed, and that is an epoxy finish. So you can see the bandsaw blade, but you can't feel it. And then my good friend Brian Smith, he owns a company called Averio Designs. Brian made those legs out of concrete, and he made the forms for them, and he casts them, and there's a little bit of walnut in them, and then he has a steel tie that connects the two of them together. And I almost had that table completely finished, and then Carly sent me a text and said, we think 10 feet is too long for our kitchen. Is there any way you could cut it down the middle and put a leaf in it? So I had already started putting finishing on it. And imagine the bandsaw blade was already inlaid. Yeah. So now I had to get a skill saw. I've got a Super Sasquatch. I had to get a blade for my saw that would cut not only wood but cut metal. And then we had to put the leaf in. Then I had to put a new finish on the table. But it was a fun project. They documented that from square one. They took the tree down on the back of her property. They followed us to Bethany where our mill was. They got video of us milling the log. They got video of us putting it in the kiln, video of us running it through the planer and the sander, then photographs of the glue up, and then tree to table.
Wow. What does that weigh?
So we rented a U-Haul van because we got to unveil it live on the air on Fox 4 News the day before Thanksgiving. It'll be 2 years ago. So Thanksgiving 2019, right? Yeah. Yeah. So we rented a U-Haul, and it took 8 of us to get it loaded in the U-Haul all by itself. So only the tabletop went in the U-Haul on moving blankets, and then Brian and Kim and my father-in-law Bob, They loaded up the legs and all the pieces to the legs in separate vehicles and followed us down to the station. And then we had to assemble the table in there. It's heavy. That tabletop, I don't know, probably weighs 200 pounds, the tabletop, but the legs probably weigh 200 each. So it's a beast. And Chris and Carly have 2 small kids, so we needed to build something that would withstand. That's heirloom furniture right there.
no
That thing
doubt.
will withstand the test of time.
So you assembled it in the studio
Yeah, we
for
had to.
television.
Yeah, that picture was actually taken at Fox 4.
And then did you say goodbye? Did you have to take it apart to get it to
So we had to take it apart, put it back in the U-Haul, and then we went up to Chris and Carly's house and moved it into the house and assembled it to where I'm assuming it's still sitting there. They're not moving that. And then my mother-in-law, it was really cool. So it had a 24-inch leaf, and I bought all the leaf hardware from Rockler. I love buying stuff from them.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well,
He's woodcraft.
oh but they didn't have those kind of things that I needed. So, and the other thing that's hard to find is I use the threaded inserts. I don't put lags in. I like to use them threaded inserts. That way, if you ever need to disassemble it, you could take it apart real easy, and you don't have to worry about the holes getting stripped out. Yeah, we put that thing back together in their house, and my mother-in-law made her. She's a seamstress, or she does it as a hobby. She made a beautiful bag, handcrafted, that's got a zipper on it that the leaf goes in and everything. So I really hope that, their kids can say, Grandma and Grandpa had this table made. I don't know, we put our logo on the bottom of it so for future generations. Of course, I'll be dead and gone by then, but we'll see. But that's some of the stuff that we do. There's a maple river table that we made out of that big log that we told you we were taking down. That is spalted sugar maple, silver maple, green leaf maple, whatever you want to call it. And then you see back behind it, that's her sofa table that we also made. Of course, she didn't put it behind her sofa. She had some Amish guys build those chairs for her, and they were amazing. Those just really, really nice. But I'm trying to get away from building furniture. We've done furniture for 5 breweries. Yeah, 5 breweries, and we're working on number 6 and number 7 now. And then we're doing
What is that one?
that one. Oh, that's Iowa Project up in Spencer, Iowa. We built all their tables, and then we built their bar. Their bar was incredibly complicated. That is 3 Trails Brewing up on the Independence Square. That is all mitered, live edge, black walnut. I use hemp rope to join the seams.
You're a glutton for punishment, aren't you?
Yeah. It's challenging. I mean, you can see how challenging it is, but it's fun. I mean,
Now,
I don't
have you ever figured out what your wage is per hour on doing something? it's in the pennies per hour.
You know
I'm
what?
sure.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. I do this for the same reason you guys do it. I do it because I love it. I do it because I have passion for it. Not many people can say with 100% honesty that they're doing what they love. And when you consider how this got started for me, from a phone call from a friend and said, hey, I know a guy that's looking for a pallet salesman. And here we are 11 years later. I mean, blessed is the only word that comes to my mind. It really is. So I do it for the money, but I don't do it to get rich. Grandpa used to say pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. And when I sell walnut for $3 a board foot, that tells you that I'm not doing it for the money. Especially when you got $2 a board foot in a log. So, yeah, that's us. That's what we do. And
So you mentioned earlier that you do some quarter sawing. Will you take a log and quarter saw, like a white oak log, for example, and quarter saw it properly?
I don't have to tell you, quarter sawn lumber is the most stable lumber you could get,
Yeah.
but it is incredibly time consuming, and you get a lot of waste.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on what you call waste. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
We got raccoons that dig through our dumpster out in the front of the house, and then we've got woodworkers that dig through the burn pile in the back. So, we shoot at one scavenger, but we welcome
And
the
you
other.
take the money from the other one.
Yeah, no, actually, if it's in the burn pile, it's yours.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't charge for the burn pile, but we do. So we had some leftover 8x8s that were red oak, and they were a little doty on one end, and I didn't want to use them, so I just put them in the burn pile. And one of the guys is like, "Are you throwing these away?" I said, "Well, I'm not throwing away." I said, "But I'm going to burn them." He's like, "Can I have them?" I said, "I'll make a deal with it. If you get them out of here, you could have them." And I think he probably went and saw the chiropractor right after he left my place, because I didn't tell him he could use a skid loader. So, but no, we will properly quarter saw lumber. Quarter saw sycamore is
it's beautiful.
absolutely
Yeah.
stunning. Looks like lace wood.
Yeah.
So we're putting, if my wife allows me, we're going to be putting a pond in this spring, and I've got 8 really big sycamore trees that will have to come out, along with a bunch of other trees that will have to come out. But we're going to take out these logs, and I'm going to quarter saw all of that sycamore. I'm going to put it in my kiln and dry it, and then Jeremiah's going to run it through the molder, and my hardwood floor upstairs is going to be all quarter saw and sycamore.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I'm going to do a waterfall river staircase. That
You're
goes
not
upstairs.
adopting anyone anytime soon.
If you could cook and you got 10 fingers.
And know how to run a dishwasher.
You know, that's the toughest part for me too, is most of the time I'm by myself. I don't have any employees. So, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, and I hate telling people no. So I work a lot, but like I said, I enjoy what I do. Until I can't do this anymore, I'm sure my lungs will get me because I don't wear a respirator when I'm out in the shop.
Once it goes in, it doesn't.
I know, yeah. Well, it comes out, but like I said, it's just fun. I really enjoy it. I told somebody interviewed me one time and about logs, and I said, when I get a load of logs in, it's like Christmas. Every time you cut into a log, you see something different, and it's really cool because I'll allow a customer to be there while I'm cutting their log, as long as they stand over in the designated, area where if we break a blade, it's not going to get them. But it's watching people try and control their emotions when you're cutting their log and they're getting to see for the first time what it's revealing. It's pretty cool. It really is. It's pretty neat. There's no better feeling in the world than being able to help other people out and do things like that.
Now, do you have contacts that can take a log down in someone's yard if it's a
That's a
nuisance
very,
tree or something?
very good question. We get probably a dozen emails, phone calls a week. Do you buy trees? There's a difference between a tree and a log, and that difference is liability.
Yeah, horizontal or vertical?
Yes, exactly. I do not buy trees. I will buy standing timber. Difference between trees and standing timber is if we're cutting timber, I don't care which direction it falls. If you're cutting a tree, then you got to worry about utilities and buildings. And we do buy yard logs. We're probably one of the only mills around that'll give money for a yard log. If somebody has a tree that's worth my time, I will get them in touch with someone who is both licensed and insured and knows what they're doing and can bring it down properly and safely. And then they could recoup some of their expense in the tree removal when I write them a check for the log. And we get calls constantly.
Yeah, I get a lot of emails from people saying, "Oh, I've got a log in my yard or a tree in my yard that needs to come down. I'm sure some of you woodworkers would like to have it." No, we want the lumber from
Yeah,
it.
we want. Well, I mean, nobody goes and buys a black walnut tree to produce their own black walnuts. Right. If anything, they complain they broke an ankle because they rolled their foot over one, or they hit one with the mower and it flew out and went through the windshield of their car. We get so many. And another misbelief is just because you got a big tree in your yard, that's not always a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Right. People get offended when they have a red oak log, which around here, they're everywhere.
Yeah, pin oaks.
Pin oaks are everywhere. But it's pretty lumber, but it's heavy. And people get offended when they say, I've got this great big oak log in my front yard. They cut the tree down, but I want to sell the log. What will you give me for it? And I tell them, it's worth 32 cents a board foot delivered to me. If you're lucky, it's 52 cents a board foot. But they're like, well, it's going to cost me $300 to get it towed to you, or because I won't come pick it up. Those days are over. When we were first getting started, we were desperate for logs. Yeah, I put 100,000 miles on my dually the first 2.5 years I had it. Well, I got rid of that truck and I got a brand new one. It's got 3,000 miles, and none of those miles were logged driving through urban areas fetching logs out of somebody's backyard. Those days are over. I don't do that anymore. I'll gladly write them a check, but you got to get it to me. Yeah, I mean, what's the alternative? It goes into a Missouri Organic and they chip it up into trash. You don't want to do that. You might as well get it to me and we'll turn it into something. So, and we could cut them
Because
up
that's
to 5 feet.
probably the biggest thing for most people is I've got a tree, I've got an expansion, a construction site has
Yes.
trees. As long as it's down, fine. Now you got to get it to them. A lot of people don't understand that expense.
Well, they don't understand the expense and they don't understand the equipment that it takes to move a 10,000-pound log. I've got a pretty good sized skid loader, but it takes more than one skid loader to move a 10,000-pound log. We got a tree off the Independence Square June of 2019. It made national news. When they cut down the tree at the Overfelt Johnston home up on the Independence Square, the home was built in like the 1850s. The Battle of Independence took place right across the street, and they called that Cannon Hill. Randall Pratt, the attorney that owns the home, said that when they remodeled the home in the 80s, they found a cannonball lodged up in the rafters. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And he was telling us some other dark stories associated with the tree, which I won't share. I'll share them in person if somebody wants to come out. We cut the tree down. We took the main log. It had to come down. It had disease. And if it would have fallen, it would have taken out 4 houses. That's how big the canopy was. This was a black walnut tree, roughly 300 years old. The butt cut was 68 inches, and the log was 16 feet long, and then it had a crotch, and the crotch was 81 inches. We didn't have a mill big enough to mill it, so we had to find somebody that could. Jeff Eastham, the guy that took down the tree, the guy that Randall paid to take down the tree, when they were cutting up the rest of the tree into firewood, a cannonball popped out. It was a Woodford cannonball, and Randall still has it, and I think there's probably pictures of it on our Facebook page. Jeff texted me a picture the day it happened, just minutes after the cannonball popped out when he was splitting logs. He said, hey, check it out, this fell out of the tree when we were splitting it. So I thought, oh, that's cool, and put it on my Facebook page. Well, about that time, we had met Chris and Carly, and we were up at her house, and I was showing them pictures, and then she posted it on her, I don't know, Snapchat or whatever, and it went viral. It was on Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 9, 41, Inside Edition. So that was our 15 minutes of fame. But that was called a witness tree because the tree was old enough, and because of its proximity, it was there to witness events of the Civil War. So that's probably the most valuable one I've ever had. I've still got one slab left of that.
Well, even then, at the Civil War, that was an old tree.
I know. Yeah, I mean, put that into perspective. That was an old tree 200 years ago. That was considered old growth 200 years ago. Wow. But, it was just amazing, the color. There were bullets in it. Every once in a while you get lucky and you'll cut through a bullet when you're milling. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys ever found one in a piece of wood. Yeah, and we found some really cool. We cut through a raccoon once on accident. We were milling a log and there was a coon living in it. And
I was helping a guy, Tom the Sawyer. He brought his mill out to a friend's house, and they were milling a log, and this blade goes by, and this mouse pops up. And I said, look at that, a mouse popped up. He says, better than half a mouse.
Yeah. Yeah, we get that all the time, and Cammie loves it. Mice are just her favorite thing in the world. She likes to catch them and play with. I'm just kidding. You see a mouse, all I gotta do is say mouse.
And she's gone.
Oh, it's hilarious. And they know she's scared. She'll be on the UTV, and a mouse will come running out. Which directions it go? Run straight towards her. And it's like they've been trained. Yes, ma'am.
So when you were moving the top of the table, did the U-Haul tip over?
No. The way we were driving probably was more dangerous to the table than that. Those old U-Haul trucks, they're not built for speed or comfort. So if anybody's ever driven one, you just got to say a prayer and hope you get to your destination. A to B. Yep, A to B. Well, A to A and then maybe B. So, yeah.
Chris, do we have any other questions online? Okay. I mentioned earlier about George Nakashima, some of those great big slabs. I pulled up his website here.
The inventor of live edge.
Well, he's the one that started it back in the late 40s through
That's
the 50s.
hard to believe it's been around that long.
Yeah.
It's just really made it to the
And
Midwest.
when people come into my store, into Woodcraft, get the plug in there,
Yeah,
Woodcraft.
I'll have to come check it out.
They think live edge is something new, and I'll pull.
Well, here
up-
they do.
Yeah. Well, I'll pull that up and say, well, here, this table was built in 1950. Live edge is nothing new.
I had a guy out the other day. You could tell his buddy forced him to ride with him, and the customer was super cool, really nice guy. Told me what he was making, and his buddy stood there the whole time with his arms crossed like this, and he was yawning. And I guess he thought he'd be kind of clever and get one over him. And he goes, "So I got a question. When this whole live edge fad is over with, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to cut the live edge off and sell it as dimensional lumber." Snarky. He was snarky. And then I reminded him that we had 40 beautiful, majestic acres where someone could dispose of a body quite quickly. So
Whole or in pieces.
I don't have a wood chipper, but I got pretty big saw.
You got any tigers?
We did. Hey, that's funny. We did catch a mountain lion on the game camera a few weeks ago. Wow. A lot of bobcats, turkey, deer, trash pandas. We got a beaver. So, yeah, we got a lot of wildlife.
Anything else? All righty.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Well,
Thanks for having
we
me.
have to do one more thing here.
Okay.
Every visitor that comes to speak to us gets a mug from the
And I
Kansas City
drink
Woodworkers
a lot
Guild.
of coffee.
And so this, we'll look up here at Chris. This is the mug shot. There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. I
So-
appreciate you guys having me.
What's that?
Stay in frame.
Stay in frame?
Stay
Okay, I
in
have to move
frame.
it. I have to lose weight, don't I? Look at that. All
I
right.
told somebody that trees get to a mature height at a certain age, and at that point, they only do like we do. They get bigger around.
Well, as I'm getting bigger around, see you next month, third Wednesday of the month.